Welcome to Quark's Bar, everyone. All sales are final. We do not offer refunds. Keep your hands off my Dabo girls. And if Morn is here, buy him a drink. Welcome, everyone. I am NB Geek. This is NB Geeks. Mice! The hooders!
Too much lens flare. Too much lens flare.
Too much lens flare. What is this, a J.J. Abrams movie? What are you doing with those lens flares? Damn it, I thought we banned that when Kurtzman came in.
They should have. Yeah, they should have.
How dare you lens flare me? There's only one man who would dare use a lens flare against me. Jack Beers! Boom! It's amazing what I can come up with on the fly. Oh my goodness gracious, Jack! It's great to see you,
enjoy
buddy.
Star Trek your way. Hashtag enjoy Star Trek your way.
Yeah.
Now it's good to see you too. Yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna at least give them. I'm gonna say one thing they've actually kept in canon is just showing how much Mariner's a fuck up.
And they even admit it by calling her Vindicta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's like, like there's a definition. It goes for Vindicta is derived from vindictive, right?
Yeah.
Which vindictive means like having or showing a strong or unreasoning desire for revenge. And so that's literally what she's doing, and they even call her Vindicta. So they're admitting that she's vindictive, but we're supposed to like her anyways.
I think they're going for some, and I'm just going to throw this out here because I think this is where they're going with it. Maybe, I'm just going to say maybe they actually thought a little bit through this 10-episode arc, and maybe, just maybe, in this final episode, she's actually going to get her head out of her ass and realize she can actually be a decent Starfleet officer.
It's possible. We'll see where that goes. I have no idea. It looks like the next episode is going to be about, because at the end of this episode, Boimler finds out that Mariner is the daughter of the captain, and they've been keeping that a secret this whole time. I don't get it. I don't know why.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
If they're such good friends to, like, they take each other to concerts and protect each other from girlfriends and stuff like that, then why wouldn't she trust him with that information?
Or how about the fact that it would be in her personnel file?
It would, yeah.
It would be. Father Admiral so-and-so, mother Captain so-and-so, okay? Yeah, she doesn't have the same last name as her mother. Why? Who the hell knows? Reasons. But to come out in this episode and be like, oh, nobody knew she was the captain, I'm like, that's some bullshit. That's like Ash is the albino Klingon level of bullshit.
Yeah, that was really bad. And in this episode, they're generally making fun of the movies. In this one,
yes,
yeah, and like it's like some people would try and call them a homage. No, it's not a homage. They're simply making fun of a bunch of stuff. And I said this in the tweet. Mariner is at her worst in this episode. Before I just thought she was like an annoying girl, annoying woman. But now I just don't. I just think she's a vindictive piece of shit.
No, she is a piece of shit because she said it very plainly. Screw the Prime Directive.
Oh yeah, that's how it starts.
Excuse me, young officer. as you and I both know, as being military veterans, we swore an oath to defend the Constitution. She
Mm-hmm.
swore an oath to defend the Prime Directive.
Right. Which is
And
part of, I
she's
think
like,
that's part of the Articles of Starfleet or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it's called.
but yeah, I mean, you would think that they would have to hold to the values of the Prime Directive. And she's like, screw the Prime Directive. I was like, did you
Yeah.
just? I was like,
Yeah.
thank you. You're 9 episodes in, and you finally just lay it all out for us that she is just an a dumbass who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't respect the Federation at all. She might as well go join the Cardassians for fuck's sake.
Right. And now people would say, oh, well, you know, Captain Kirk broke the Prime Directive here and Picard broke the Prime Directive. I was like, okay, yeah, they broke the Prime Directive. They were the captains of the ship. That was their prerogative to do. Mariner is an ensign. There is no reason for her to go that far to cause a possible intergalactic incident, you know,
Now,
by breaking the rules.
did you notice that those two creatures we saw, the lizard people and the dog looking people, don't they look very, very similar to a couple of aliens we saw back in season 1 of TNG?
They did, but I didn't really notice it at first. Yeah, like when you look back, I kind of think so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it looked like the lizard people and it was the one where Tasha Yar, they have to go. I don't remember the episode all off the top of my head, but they were talking about, where were you from this time to this time? And he said, eating. And he goes, sir, we're talking hours. It was like, it was a very interesting meal.
Right.
Or it was a
Right.
very large meal and a very interesting animal. And it just, the way that character looked and the way the lizard characters looked, they looked like the ones from that episode. And I was kind of like, wait a minute. How is this an international incident when this should have been somewhat resolved 20 some years ago?
Right.
Or,
And so
when the Enterprise was actually the ones hosting these two fucking species? I
mhm.
just, and
And
if
so
I'm
the
wrong, if I'm wrong about those species, but I don't think I am.
and so I'm trying to remember the captain's name. Um, but she beams down,
Yeah.
and being the captain, it's her prerogative on whether or not to break the Prime Directive. She decides not to break the Prime Directive in this case, to unfuck whatever her daughter did, and so she gets mad about that because I don't know why. Um, and so that's the beginning of it, and then they beam her back to the ship and order her to counseling. Is what I remember. Yeah, which was dumb, and the counselor was dumb. I don't give a shit about the counselor. Um,
That
and
counselor was so pathetic.
so meanwhile, Boimler is in the holodeck. He programs, I guess, a perfect copy of the bridge and all the crew. He puts he puts all their personal logs in there, so they're supposed to act exactly as they're supposed to. And this gives
I'm getting
Mariner the
tired of,
idea.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Jack. I gotta bring this up. I'm
Mhm.
getting tired of the brown nosing Boimler and the ass kissing he's doing because it's just getting pathetic. It's like this guy is woefully incompetent
I agree
and he's
with you.
just trying to kiss ass, and it's kind of like this guy. If they were trying to take a play on Barkley, they failed
Oh
miserably.
yeah, no,
Because
they completely failed on that. Barkley, you know, Barkley was extremely intelligent. He wasn't exactly socially
he lacked confidence and he
exactly.
was
He lacked
socially
confidence.
awkward. Yes,
Yes,
but he
yes,
was competent.
yes.
He
He
just
was
needed
competent.
that push. He needed
Yes,
that push,
exactly.
and Captain Picard is the one who even made the push happen, even though
Yes,
LaForge didn't want to do it. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he was being a freaking captain. Here it's
Yeah.
like, you're right. The captain goes down. She's trying to unfuck this situation. Beckett puts them back in, Mariner, whatever the fuck her name is. And she's like, oh, I'm going to the brig. Big surprise. It's like, wait a minute. If you're going to joke about the brig this much that you're stuck there, I'm like, first off, I want to know how this captain has not been relieved of duty for being willfully incompetent and putting her ship in
Yeah,
jeopardy.
she is a pretty incompetent captain herself, in my opinion. I would have busted her down like episodes ago. Yeah,
I
she's
gave
terrible at it.
I made it clear Janeway was my least favorite of the captains for those first about 3.5 seasons. She finally, came into her own as a captain at some point, but even
Mm-hmm.
then, she still had some moments. It just seemed like, plot convenience determined, whether or not she was going to be one type of captain or another, which was a drop off from DS9 because, as you know, I've stated, DS9 just came out of the ball swinging. Cisco knew exactly what kind of commander he was going to be and became that kind of captain. Uh, Mariner's mom, I mean, honestly, I don't care if this is your child. I have a child who's talking about joining the military, and I've said I don't think that may be a good fit for you.
Right.
Am I going to tell her not to do it? No, but I'm going to be honest with her. I'm like, look, I've done it for 20 years. Your mother did it for 20 years. I know you. You could prove me wrong, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you, I think this is good. No, Mariner, after however many times she's been busted in, first off, the fact that she's a fucking ensign. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
at least Janeway busted everybody off the Equinox down to crewmen.
She was she was in Starfleet long enough to become a captain.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there she is an ensign who's probably been a lieutenant a couple of times and have been busted down. I don't think she's gotten any further than lieutenant, to be honest.
I'm still trying to figure out how she made full lieutenant.
Right.
Because,
Well, no, they skipped
and I think
junior
you
grade
mentioned
in
that,
this
didn't
show.
you?
They
You
skipped the
mentioned that,
junior
right? You're
grades
like,
in this
they
show.
seem to
Yes.
have forgotten that there was a Lieutenant JG.
Yeah, exactly. They forgot about that. So I mean, like, okay, whatever. That's their ignorance. But like, I like sometimes I get it. Like they're trying to simplify everything, but honestly, I mean, you don't have to simplify it to the point where like you skip grades and you skip ranks and stuff like that. It's weird. At least for me, it's weird.
No,
So
it is completely weird.
so
Uh,
so Boimler has this program, and Mariner has this idea, and so she just goes out of her. She goes out of it once again. Goes out of her way to fuck up Boimler's bullshit. To fuck with Boimler. Doesn't give a shit about what he thinks. He's actually sitting there pleading her to not mess with his
she
coding because
really is, oh my God, she
he
really
probably
is
spent
a
a
bitch
fuckload
to
of
him.
time. He probably spent a fuckload of time trying to program all that shit. And then, here comes Mariner with her Mary Sue like fucking kung fu hands and shit, able to make an entire movie in like 2 seconds of programming. You know what I mean? And then once you get into it, it's they try to replicate the movie titles and stuff like that. The movie titles
Yes.
that come
Oh
in,
God.
and they're ducking under it, and then Boimler gets hit with one of them in the head. And then if you notice, they put Mariner's name in like most of the credits.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. That was so
I don't know,
terrible.
man. Actually, what threw me for, what really killed me? I'm going to be honest. I thought it was bad enough when she said, it's the 80s. We don't need therapy. I thought that was bad enough. But
Hmm.
then when I saw Da Vinci, and I'm like, oh, you did not just go rip off Voyager.
Yeah, no, that was a member berry basically, but that was a little bit more creative. I think I would rather have seen Da Vinci than hear one of them talk about Da Vinci. To be honest.
Well, if they hadn't thrown so many of these member berries at us throughout the 9 episodes, yes, then it would have been cool. But it's like even
Yeah.
when Boimler goes, "Oh, they would have normally sent the Enterprise to do this, but artistic license." I'm like, "Oh my god,
That was an eye roll. Eye roll.
oh
Biggest
god."
eye roll ever. The reason why I'm wearing this pot lay right now is because I tried something different. I tried watching this episode high,
It doesn't
hoping
help.
hoping that it would help, and it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Hey, Purple
Sadly.
Valkyrie.
Hi, Purple Valkyrie.
Hey, PB. We love you. You're awesome as always. It's great to see you up. I mean, I think they're 5 hours ahead of me in Greenwich Mean Time. So it's probably
Possibly.
8, 9 o'clock. Well, actually, I think she's a night owl. But yeah, that was such an eye roll. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, you really just did that? Was that their way of basically admitting they can't show a Galaxy class starship or a Sovereignty class starship because CBS doesn't have the rights to them for some reason?
I don't
I
know. I don't even know.
I don't know.
They at this point, because the companies are together, they should have the rights, but for some reason they're not. I don't know. I can't. I have nothing on that. What I do have is a lot to say about when they first show the Cheerios.
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
So when they first show it, they're trying to be like in the movies, but not the original movies, right? They're trying to be like how J.J. Abrams, first shows the Enterprise in all its glory or whatever. And of course, in the spirit of J.J. Abrams, they put in a fuck ton of lens flares because I don't know why. I don't know why. But, I mean, when I first saw that part, I wanted to just immediately just put on the fucking sunglasses. You know what I mean? Like, just like in my privacy in my room, I needed some goddamn sunglasses to see that shit. I mean, like, it reminded me of the Evil Dead movies. You know how Bruce Campbell, I'm blind, that type of shit. That type of shit was what I felt.
And here's what I can't figure out. Why couldn't they take something from the original movie? When we were like in awe. I mean, a lot of us even say it's not, it's not our favorite Star Trek movie. And that's okay, but that whole panel where we get to see the ship in all its glory and we get to see what they did to it and the revamping, and you're just like, your jaw's dropping. You're like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous.
All I was doing was paying attention to the lens flare, though. That's all I was paying attention to. I was like, God, there's a lens flare. There's a goddamn lens flare. Goddamn lens flares. That's what I normally tweet when I see them. But
or they could have or they could have done it where like when Star Trek 6, where we had the Enterprise and the Excelsior, and they slowly, pan away from each other and going out, and they're gorgeous together. And it's just beautiful. And the only closest thing you'll get to a lens flare is you see the star, obviously the soul, the sun.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it sets up the moment beautifully. Whereas where you're talking about, it's like the lens flares pop up and you're like, wait a minute, is this your first time on the ship? And they're like, oh no, they've been on the ship several times. It's just like, it always gets me. I was like, oh my God.
Right, yeah. It wasn't even special because it wasn't the first time, you know what I mean? And let me give you a little history on lens flares. Actually, back in the 50s and before that, up, since I would say like around the time of Citizen Kane and stuff like that, lens flares were very taboo in the movie industry. If there was a lens flare in your shot, you had to refilm it again. Lens flares in your shots, they usually meant that, they were usually seen as a form of bad cinematography back in those days. And it got to the point where they started coating lenses with chemicals and filters and stuff to prevent lens flares from happening. Now, that started to change in the 1960s when they kind of experimented with lens flares because they wanted to give like a more realistic, more documentary feel, because documentaries had lens flares all the time, and
Yes, obviously.
so they started putting lens, they started experimenting with lens flares. I know Cool Hand Luke did it, Easy Rider, stuff like that. However, I remember in film school, I saw Cool Hand Luke, and the first thing I thought was after I watched the movie was, God damn, that was some terrible lighting. But
so what we got here is a failure to communicate.
Boom, 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 boom.
Okay,
yeah.
just as long as we are straight here. We are not comparing Citizen Kane, Easy Rider, or Cool Hand Luke. Okay. As long as I know where you're going with this, but when you mention Citizen Kane, I'm like, please, I'm like, oh my God, let's not go into a masterpiece.
No. I'm just talking about the history of lens flares in general.
But you bring up a good point with Citizen Kane, the lighting, and especially the more I watch, and I grew up on a lot of black and white TV. That was a lot of the classic stuff I watched. So, I didn't mind not seeing color. I could watch a movie that had color, watch a movie that didn't have color. It wasn't, but, as I got older and I learned a little bit about cinematography, not much. Now, I didn't go to film school or anything. But when I was watching, you watch Citizen Kane, the lighting is just gorgeous. And I was saying the same thing.
That's why I said the part of what I wanted to make a point about was that with Citizen Kane, that's when I started adding filters and stuff to the lenses to prevent the lens flares. And they did much more than that, but that was part of why it was such a successful movie. Why the cinematography, even over 100 years later, is
still
seen as genius. Yes,
it still holds up. And I will say this: most recently, I think I told you this. I watched with my father for the first time. I watched a John Wayne movie I hadn't seen, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and I was talking.
Yes. I need to watch that again.
And as I was watching the movie, it's all in black and white. And I was talking to my dad, and I was just like, man, the lighting and the shading is just gorgeous.
It just really, and that was on top of the great story.
Yes. It had a great cast of characters. I mean, I was talking to my dad, and I said, I know John Wayne is considered the front person, but this is really a Jimmy Stewart movie.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. Yeah, and I think that was his breakout role, wasn't it?
No, I think his breakout role was Miracle on 34th Street, or maybe Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. But he had a hell of a career.
You're right.
Yeah, well, he had a hell of a career. Oh, that's another one. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The lighting, the toning.
Yes.
When you had black and white, and I think that sometimes maybe there's an appreciation that's been forgotten. Is that when they had just black and white, because color was very expensive. They had to really figure out how to make their shades, their tones, their hues, and all that. And when you watch some of those classic movies, even some of those classic TV shows, you can really see. I mean, some of it really, when they clean it up, it's crisp. Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and so normally, as I said, lens flares normally would have been taboo in the 50s and before, but come the 60s, Cool Hand Luke came out, and and because there were those stories, in my opinion, the stories were so good, you can forgive the lens flares, in my opinion.
The opening of Cool Hand Luke is enough to forgive a lot.
Yeah. So after that, lens flares were accepted as long as they look natural, at least, right?
Exactly.
And I also shouldn't have to notice them. They shouldn't go out of my way, or they shouldn't go out of their way to blind me. You know what I mean?
And I was actually thinking,
or to cover up lazy CG work.
E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Okay.
The lighting, the lens, the kind of the lens flare from the lighting.
There was
those were
Yes,
but those felt natural.
they
They
felt
didn't feel,
natural.
yes, they didn't feel like what we're seeing, which is, I mean, honestly, we can tell the difference between natural and artificial.
Right,
And we're
and
seeing it.
when you start to notice the lighting, that's one of the things they talk about. One of the rules of lighting is you're not really supposed to notice the lighting, and so when you start noticing all the lens flares, yes, that does become another form of bad cinematography. And so when J.J. Abrams made the 2009 Star Trek, he used lens flares up to wazoo, but he explained that he used he explained that he used lens flares to show that the future was bright. I don't.
And Seth MacFarlane went, okay, I can do so much better than this shit.
And he did. And he did. I wish
Oh
I had my
yes, he
Orville
did.
right
Oh
now.
yeah,
Oh
hands
yeah.
down. The Orville is gorgeous. I mean, the lighting is beautiful. Well, we could talk hours on the Orville.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
But let's.
yeah, let's
I,
get
I,
back to this shit show.
I, they
Mariner
also.
is such
He also.
a,
I just real quick.
yeah, go
I
ahead,
want to
buddy.
say that JJ also did admit that he he overdid the lens flares in that movie. He did admit that.
Yes, he did.
So yeah. So
I mean,
at
it's
least
like,
that
well, it's like I
maybe
don't
if he
get
went
mad at
back, he would
it.
have like
Well, it's like we
he
don't get mad. We're not mad at George Clooney or Joel Schumacher for Batman and Robin because they came out and said we fucked up.
bat nipples. Bat
But
nipples. Sorry.
they
Yes,
admitted they
they
fucked
admitted
up.
it.
They
Exactly. Rick
they
Berman
owned up.
admitted, even Rick Berman admitted that he screwed up the last episode of Enterprise.
Yes,
I
he did.
forgive him.
Yeah, he said
I
we
hated it,
tried
but
to
I
do a
forgive him.
Valentine. We tried to do a Valentine.
Yes.
We fucked it up. And I'm like, okay, you own up to it. I can forgive you for that. It's like, okay, you tried something, it didn't work out, but you're owning up to it. You're owning up to, yeah, we made an error here. We made a mistake.
Right.
That's why, like I said, that's why nobody's pissed at Joel Schumacher anymore for Batman and Robin. Because,
Right. So with the
everybody
bat,
came out and said, we screwed up. I mean, George Clooney even came out and said, I really possibly killed the Batman franchise. I
right.
mean, and the guy is one of the greatest actors we have. And when he comes out and says, yeah, I screwed up. I'm sorry. It's like, you got to give props to those people. Unlike
Right.
Kurtzman or, you know, Kurtzman's trolls like Trek Tantrum. It was always
Oh,
fun
don't
to
even worry
troll.
about. Don't even mention them.
No, no,
But
no. But I mean,
but
it's
even
like they're looking for like, oh, it's your fault you don't like this. It's your fault. And they're like,
right.
no, if a bunch of us are telling you it sucks, maybe it's you. Maybe when
Yeah, I
everybody
agree.
says you're the problem, you're the problem. And this is where
But
and I was segueing back into this because
okay,
Mariner's the freaking problem.
Mariner is the problem with that. But even with the bad cinematography and the directing committee, like that shit was like too much. Mariner herself programs this movie, and then the people that create this show actually animated the lens flares in it so that you would notice. You would notice it. After all of that, after all of that, you wouldn't. And honestly, I don't want to even see them anymore in any more Star Trek. No future Star Trek, like no more lens flares in future Star Trek, for fuck's sake. Like the only time I want to see a lens flare in Star Trek is either when the Enterprise warps away or when Q snaps his finger. Because old Trek actually used lens flares to show a special effect, to show that something that from the audience perspective was indistinguishable from magic was happening. You know,
Yeah.
they weren't overusing it to oh god, I don't know. But
I
anyways, that's
you
the end
know
of my rant.
well, here's what I can't figure out. Okay, I guess there's only one holodeck on the Cerritos.
Apparently,
I guess there's only one holodeck on the Cerritos. Okay, I can buy
I
that. I
yeah,
can
I
buy
can
that.
buy it.
No, that's a complete possibility. Boimer goes in, he puts a program in, and Mariner's just like, I'm gonna do this because, she's like, you've gotten
I
all
wanted to
their
throw all the
personal
tribbles
logs.
at her when she did that.
Oh, God. She's like, she starts messing with stuff. He's like, why are you messing with my program? I'm trying to. And I mean, she's such a jerk to him. She actually, in the very beginning, she's like, I'm going to help you get to a captain's chair. It's like, no, actually, you're doing everything you can to make sure he never sees the rank of lieutenant, for God's sakes.
Exactly. And yeah, and so I mean,
And then she goes on a murder spree.
on the murder, yes. So yeah, they exaggerate, they exaggerate. They also, by the way, with those shots of the Cerritos, they exaggerate the hell out of those shots. And I noticed that they purposely took way too long as a form. I think it was a form of filler. They took way too long.
I started getting nauseated with the spinning.
The spinning was, oh God,
my God, I got nauseated with that.
That was, in my opinion, that was them making fun of the whole thing too. By the way, and in the program, she becomes, as I said earlier in the beginning, she calls herself Vindicta, and if if you look up what the word vindictive is, it's having or showing a strong or unreasoning desire for revenge. So they're openly admitting that Mariner is vindictive as fuck. And we're still supposed to like her for some reason. She's not only vindictive, but vindictive to her mom, and vindictive to the point where she kills half of the crew, crashes the ship single-handedly, like a fucking Mary Sue, and then tries to kill her mom. I mean, by the way, props to Tendi in this episode.
Yes.
Props to Tendi. She did annoy me that one episode. She called her out on her
bullshit.
But she called her out on her bullshit, said, this is way too far. I'm done. Fuck you. Orions aren't like that. Maybe they kind of are still, but they aren't. At least she wasn't.
Well, isn't that kind of the, I mean, I know that we know Star Trek has a certain stereotypical view of certain cultures.
True.
Which isn't unreasonable.
No.
But, it's not like, especially, even in Enterprise, when we saw, in Enterprise in TNG, when you had scientists that were Klingons or scientists that were Ferengi. This wasn't, when they were outside the normal social norms, it was a very different thing. But we saw the same thing with humans. When humans lived outside the social norms of the Federation, they were treated differently. I mean, that was just the way that you had a certain way, and when you had people that were different, that were your own species, there was some prejudice there and some bias, and that was always part of it. But Mariner just all of a sudden wants to just go on a murder spree, and here's the thing: we don't even know why she hates her mother.
Right.
We don't know why she's mad at her dad. We don't even know why she's been demoted.
What doesn't make sense is the Mariner, the Mariner that, or like, supposedly everyone's supposed to act like how they're programmed because they're personal logs. Okay, fair enough. But then when Mariner comes in, like the one that Boimler program comes in, the holodeck one, and fights the actual Mariner, they're different. Like they're the same, but they're different. It's weird because they're fighting. They're still. You would think that they would be fighting on the same side. I don't get it. Why is I mean, this Mariner is just as mad at her mom as the Vindicta Mariner. So why is she fighting her? I don't get it.
I don't either. And then I think there was supposed to be a plant in there when he said, when she said, Boimer, you made me, those were private. Talking about her private, which, by the way, how the hell does he have access to everybody's private freaking
Ensign
personal logs?
Ensign Boimler has access to all of the private. That's kind of
never talked about this. How does he have this access?
That is unintentionally funny. That's actually making me laugh unintentionally. Wow, I didn't even think about that.
I didn't either. I just now thought about it. I was like, wait a minute, how does he have access to all the captain's personal, the first officer, the chief of security? Seriously? And it just dawned on me now when we were talking. I was like, how did we not think of this sooner?
That is crazy. Wow, I don't know. And
how has he not been court-martialed?
And they don't even, they're not even going to like look back at that too. By the way, Rutherford's plot was pointless in this one. Like this one kind of made me annoyed about him because it was just like,
were they trying to make him? Were they trying to make him gay?
I don't know. I think it was more about just like, like
or
they would have been the best
romance. I don't know.
Like a bromance. I think it was more of a bromance type of thing that they were talking about because they weren't talking about actually like, being together. They were talking about like fixing a ship together. That's what they wanted to do. That was their passion, was fixing the ship. And I don't know.
I just couldn't figure out where they were trying to go with that. I couldn't tell.
I think that was more of a bromance than like a
romance, maybe mentor, mentee thing. And that's where I was trying to figure out. I was like, are they trying to make this a mentor-mentee thing, or are they trying to come off as they have a mutual attraction to each other? And I was just kind of like, I wasn't sure. I mean, I wasn't sure how to interpret it. I mean, it just kind of was so broad, it didn't make sense.
So he thinks that his boss is the best engineer in Starfleet. And he wants to say that to him. He's for some reason he's never been able to actually do that. And so in this holodeck simulation, he decides he's going to do that to his, with his, and then all the bullshit starts happening and the ship crashes. And they still can't stop talking about ships, fixing ships. So he's like, hey, we should get a ship and we should just be on the ship and we can just fix the ship all the time. And the way they did it, I think like could have implied a little bit of a romance, but I think it was more of a bromance.
Well, and that's where I was going with, and that's where I was trying to say it came off as
these guys
could go either way.
These guys don't know how to tell a story. Yeah, these guys don't know how to tell a story.
But I mean, if you're gonna make that, if you're gonna make this, either a romance, or a,
that's not a COVID cough.
Mentee thing. What's that?
No, I coughed and I said that's not a COVID cough. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. No corona. No corona for you.
That was a California.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. No, I mean, but yeah, I mean, it was just confusing to me. I was kind of like, I'm not sure where they were trying to go with this. And it kind of took me out of the story because I was like, were you going for one thing or were you going for another? And that's really where I was trying to figure that part out. So that kind of took me out of the story because I just couldn't really tell. It was kind of like, well, I guess. And the reason why
the reason why I think it's pointless is because, he spends all that time like actually, telling him how he feels and, like he reciprocates like, and he knows that if he just tells him how he feels, or whatever, he's going to they're going to become the best of bros and shit like that. But in the end of the episode, he doesn't do it. He doesn't go up and tell her. And you would think Star Trek would be about like overcoming fears of that sort of nature, but not this Star Trek.
Well, here's the thing. Rutherford never really, and you can say I'm wrong in this, he's never come off as shy or lacking in confidence. He always seems to actually have a very enthusiastic and optimistic attitude. So
yes,
this
but when it comes to
for him.
I think when it comes to like people close to him, he doesn't do that because he also has a crush on Tendi, but he's never told her anything. Like he's never like explained that to her. You can tell because he's been trying to impress her this whole time, but he's afraid to tell her. And I think if he just told her, she would be like, "Yay!" So, I mean,
I'm gonna be
yeah,
honest. Last episode, Tandy really annoyed me. This is actually, I thought,
yes.
her best episode.
This was her best episode, and you know what? Like that is Starfleet. That
Yes.
was Starfleet of her. That was Starfleet of her. So I'm gonna my like, even though like she annoyed me a couple episodes before, like I can kind of forgive that once I see her do something like that, like stand up for herself, stand up for like what's right, tell Mariner off, tell her, hey, like you're going too far, this is too far, I'm out. I
You
mean,
know,
that was good.
and maybe, and like I said, maybe that's what they've been building towards at the end of this is going to be the end of season one. Mariner maybe finally not completely unfucks herself, but starts reflecting on how she can be a better officer and actually not be such a bitch.
Exactly,
You
and
know,
that would be a that would be a saving point too. Like
it would be.
if if Mariner could, like all of a sudden, eventually, well, not all of a sudden, but you know, with time, because I want character development too.
Yes.
Become like a model Starfleet citizen, model Starfleet officer. Um, yeah, I would love to see that type of character development. I don't want to see her, constantly yawning in the middle of important meetings and shit like that, and making fun of the word censors and shit just to get herself demoted. Like I don't want to keep seeing her doing that to herself.
Yeah, it
Again, like
doesn't.
unless she leaves Starfleet, because that's what I think. I don't think she belongs in Starfleet. I think
I
she
would
needs
agree.
to leave. I think if she left Starfleet, and maybe like every so often they'd have like a segment where like they go back to her and see like her being successful in some sort of other earthly adventure or Federation thing. Um, I wouldn't mind that, but I don't see her in like I don't see her doing any better in Starfleet. Like you know,
You know, that would actually not be a bad twist if at the end she
no,
decides to
yeah,
leave Starfleet and then,
and then
say
they
they
kind of
come
still
back
follow
season.
her. They
Yeah,
just
well,
kind of not
you could kind
completely
of,
about her. Where it's not
yeah,
completely about
exactly.
her, it's still about the Cerritos. But then every so often they go back and see like what she's doing. She's struggling. She fails. She succeeds. She gets better. Who knows? And then
Or,
maybe one day, she wants to go back to Starfleet when she feels like she's
and
ready.
maybe pick up, no, I would say this, if they ended it like that where she left Starfleet, I would say pick up a couple of years later. Boimir's, they've all gotten promoted. They're all like Lieutenant JGs.
Okay,
Boimir's
yeah.
maybe something in this final episode, Boimir actually gets his confidence and his ability to, you know, because we've seen it. He has a strength about him. He just lacks the confidence when he's
Yes.
putting it in front of it. And then this whole thing, this kind of really bummed me out. This kind of ruined the whole episode for me. At the very end, with Boimir like all flipped out because now he knows that
Oh
Mariners.
yeah. No. See,
And I was
that was
kind of
another
like,
thing too.
oh, give me a break.
And
I was
and,
like,
and
all
like
he
that.
had to,
Like
it just,
I get. Yeah. I don't like how they wrote that. Like it would have been nice to see him like okay struggle about it at first, but then not completely fucking screw it up and then run out of the room. No, that was dumb.
yeah,
That was
exactly.
dumb. Like to,
Maybe he
like the
stumbles and
struggle.
rambles a little bit and then builds on it with his
Yes,
confidence.
but these
That
people
would
don't
have
know how
been
to
a
tell a
good.
good story. I will. I wanted to say real quick. I did like seeing the ship crash because fuck that ship. But the roll that they did in the end was dumb. When it rolled
I
like a
thought I
tire.
was like, I was like, are we doing the Prometheus school of spinning things?
Yeah, that was dumb. But
Yeah,
I will say that
that was.
the way that the as dramatic as that ship crash was, it was actually not bad. So I'll admit that. Um,
No, it wasn't bad. I'm gonna be honest. this was probably the best episode out of the 9 episodes we've
Yes,
seen. In
yes,
my opinion,
this was,
uh,
and the reason why is in my opinion is at the very end. The very end actually made me laugh.
which part? What happened at the end? You're gonna have to refresh my memory here.
Okay, so at the very end, the last scene of it, they go back to the holodeck, whatever,
Yeah.
and so Mariner comes out as Vindicta in like a resurrection pod.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. And then Da Vinci.
Revenge! And then Da Vinci, out of nowhere, Da Vinci. I started laughing just because.
Oh, the wink at the end. I actually did laugh at that. That was funny.
Yes, I did laugh at that.
That actually was funny. It was funny. It's like if they could develop more like that kind of a comedy thing, throw
Right.
that. They threw that out of nowhere, and we're like, oh shit, that was funny.
Right. I loved seeing Da Vinci shoot Mariner back in her resurrection pod. That was funny.
I gotta bring this. Oh, I gotta bring this up. I didn't like the fact that they ripped off Aliens.
I agree with that.
And you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing.
Yeah. That. I was like, you just ripped off Aliens. I'm like, no, sorry, you don't get to go there. You haven't earned the right to quote Sigourney Weaver's iconic line like that.
Yeah.
It's like, you might as well go back. It's like, that's when I want to tell people, it's like, you might as well try and recreate the iconic Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator. The arm wrestle thing right there.
I got tired of throwing the tribbles. I just stopped. They stay with me when I watch these shows in case I want to throw them. But I'm just like, I just get tired of throwing them. My arm's tired.
I just the strangest thing is, if this had been, and I'm not saying this was a great episode, but it's the best we've seen so far, I think. And if this had been the quality we saw in the first episode, I think, if they had done that kind of quality writing and built on that, we might actually be talking about, the show's great.
You're right. They should have put this episode in the beginning. That's how I kind of feel about that. I mean,
well, it doesn't. Well, think about it. It's like now all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute. Boromir now knows that Beckett is, Mariner's, the captain's daughter. Somehow this never. Wait a minute. By the way, I'm gonna piggyback back to something. How is it he had all that access to her personal logs and somehow never caught this? I'm calling bullshit.
True.
I'm calling bullshit.
Well,
Even Boromir's not that stupid. But I mean, if this had been like, say, one of the first episodes, or the concept of it had been an early episode, I think it would have added more weight. And if the episodes had continued to flow in a similar fashion to like that, I think we might actually be talking about there is potential for this. Because this was the episode I was like, okay, I wasn't really laughing, but at this point we're kind of numb to things. So It's like it shocks us when it's like, wait a minute. You guys are actually making something halfway decent. It's like, why did it take you 9 episodes to do what, I think should have been in the first episode? I think it would have, if this had been the writing, the first episode, and built on it, like I've been saying, I think we'd actually be talking about something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And it, and then, obviously they put this in there because in the end, Boimler finds out that, Mariner is the father, the daughter of the captain. And so the next episode is going to deal with the fallout from that. And it's probably going to spread and everyone's going to end up finding out, who she is. I don't know why that's a big deal.
I don't either. That you see, that's the thing.
That's
what
that's
made
kind
those.
of a weak season finale, in my opinion.
Well, that's kind of the weird thing. We all knew it. We just assumed everybody else knew it. And now we're finding out, wait a minute, this is some deep dark secret. It's like I said, it kind of reminisces almost as bad as when we found out,
To be
Ash
honest,
was the.
I thought I thought that was the case. It was way predictable.
I I just thought it was so stupidly obvious. You couldn't really go that low. It
Yeah.
just made no sense to me.
Well,
Maybe I
these
just.
guys do.
I'm sorry. I guess maybe I forget that Star Trek used to be intellectual.
Yes, it used to be. Used to be is the point.
Thank you, JJ, for the lens flares. And
Oh,
then
fuck
Kurtzman
JJ
said,
for the lens flare.
well, then Kurtzman said, hold my beer and watch this shit.
So hey, that's all that's all I really have for this one.
Yeah, yeah, I'm in the same boat, and we're at about 51 minutes, so we're doing pretty good.
I
I know we ended. I get, but it's sad. This episode showed the most potential, and
it did.
it's sad when I saw that it was like there's actual potential here, and then it's like then we get the letdown at the end, and I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
You had the ball and you dropped it again.
Yeah, they actually had the ball, and they actually dropped the ball. Yeah. And I wish I could say something better about it because this was the one that I had the least hope for because of I thought that this was going to be Mount Stupid, but Mount Stupid happened in during Picard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but apparently Lower Decks was not Mount Stupid. That's them actually trying to get their intelligence, and they actually go on the right track in a lot of ways, but and also a lot of ways they're still going on the wrong track. I did want to talk a little bit about Discovery. Talking about being on the wrong track, the completely wrong track.
Yeah.
So the ratings on CBS television just completely suck. So far, 2 episodes have been out. We got ratings for 2 episodes, and yes, this premiered 3 year. These premiered 3 years on earlier on CBS All Access, but
yeah, I remember.
This is the first time we're getting numbers, and so Battle of the Binary Stars got 1.6 million viewers, right? Which was a 1.35% decrease from last week's 1.7 million. The first episode got 1.7 million. This one got 1.6. Now, compare that to TNG. Their second episode of the first season, The Naked Now, 11 million and a half viewers. 11 million.
Let's be honest, that
viewers.
was not that good of an episode.
It was not. It was one of the worst episodes, but that's how much, that's how much better the storytelling was. That's how much more people were interested in Star Trek than nowadays.
Well, Star Trek went through.
Get it. Let's get it this way. 9.8 million more people watched Data get laid in TNG than watched the opening of the battle between the Federation and the Klingons. You know what I mean? That was supposed to be a much bigger thing.
There were Klingons much less people saw it. There were Klingons in Star Trek Discovery.
Excuse me. Hold on. I got a frog in my throat. I meant Klingorks.
Yeah, I started to say I don't remember seeing Klingons in TNG. At least Lower Decks. At least Lower Decks shows us Klingons.
Yes, Lower Decks shows us Klingons. And that's at least they do that right.
I got to be honest too. I actually enjoy the animation. I don't really have a big problem with the animation. It has
some. I notice sometimes when I pause it. I notice sometimes when I pause it in certain areas where like there's supposed to be a lot of action, you all of a sudden see like Boimler has like 15 fingers, and then like he's got an extra arm coming out in a hole in the middle. Sometimes they do that shit, but for the most part, I actually relook at it. But for the most part, I actually don't really have too much of a problem with the animation. Other than that,
yeah, the animation. The only thing I said is when I first said it was from the original episode, the pilot, to the second episode. I can still tell the CGI quality went down.
Yes, it
went down, but I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's decent. Their 2D stuff is. I actually don't mind it. It's just the story and the writing are just garbage. And I mean, when I'm 9 episodes in, or when we're 9 episodes in, and we're like, this is actually the best episode, and it actually shows that there's. But and that's the thing. It's like this shows there is a shot that this could get better. And it kind of makes me almost.
I don't see it being as inspiring as Old Trek, because Old Trek inspired people to write like philosophy and learn science and stuff like that. Like I have this book called Star Trek and Philosophy, and it is like the Wrath of Kant, and it's like this 300 pages of philosophy about Star Trek, about people philosophizing about Star Trek, because they're such good. They love Star Trek so much that they want to learn. They want to understand other aspects of it, and I really don't. I don't really see New Trek inspiring, philosophy majors or science majors for that fact.
No, look, New Trek does not do the inspiration of Old Trek. Old Trek inspired people to become engineers, technicians, join the military, become doctors and scientists, to become inventors.
Imagine a Discovery fan joining the military and realizing, oh, it's not like Discovery, not at all like Discovery. No. If I disobey a captain's order, they send me to the brig. Holy fuck!
But I mean, I became I'm one of those people. I became an IT guy, a computer guy, because of Star Trek. Because of the computers in Star Trek, TOS, TNG, because that's when I grew up, and it inspired me in ways that that's what Star Trek did. It just had a way of going about it. Whereas now they're trying to make it, like JJ did, and they're trying to make it too action. It's like that's not Star Trek. They're trying to make. What was it JJ said? He wanted to make Star Trek like Star Wars, and it's like, no.
Mm-hmm. It's nothing like that, yeah. They're both two completely different ideologies, you know what I mean?
Well, as I always said, it's a very simple thing. Star Wars is checkers. Star Trek is Go.
Okay.
On top of chess. You do a round of chess and then you do a round of Go. Because Star Trek is complex.
It is.
Star Trek is complex. Layer after layer. Just nothing is ever, even in TOS and TNG, nothing is ever completely black and white. Just because, but we get these different. But here, now it's just, oh, this is the bad guy, this is the bad guy. It's like, wait a minute, you are taking iconic ideas of species we know, and you're turning into one-dimensional people, and you're turning the Federation into a one-dimensional, I don't even know what the Federation was supposed to be at this point. They seemed like it was kind of almost a dictatorship.
I don't know. I mean, after seeing Picard and realizing there's no privacy on Earth anymore, like they just randomly beam onto like private apartments and stuff like that.
Oh my God, that was so messed up. Oh, and okay, I guess I don't know what it is. I guess in the 28, or what is it, 2380? Yeah, 2380. I guess fuck has come back into fashion, because I'm sure noticing fuck comes up a fucking lot.
Oh yeah,
came up in fucking Picard. Came up in fucking.
All three Kurtzmans.
Oh God!
All three Kurtzmans have done that.
I hate it. I hate it. And I fucking say the
It
fucking F
it
fucking
always
bomb all the time.
it always pulls me out of the story. It always pulls me out of the story because I know Star Trek doesn't normally curse like that. Um, you know, yeah. So like, it always pulls me out, and it, like, all of a sudden I'm wondering if I'm watching Star Trek or like something else.
Some generic sci-fi shit.
Yeah,
That's
some
what it
generic
feels like.
sci-fi show
That's what it feels like. And every time they do it,
that's just trying to
especially
sound edgy.
and they're blowing it even more on LDS because it's like, oh, we're behind a paywall, and it's like we're just gonna bleep it out, so it's cool. No, actually, that makes it even worse.
Yeah, and
That makes it worse.
now it sounds like an episode of South Park.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like an episode of South Park before you get the DVDs,
Yeah,
and you're just it takes me out of it even more now. And I kind of like, stop it. You're not being funny. You're not being edgy. If you're going to be edgy, you need to be edgy 24th century edgy, not trying to act like people in the 20th century or the 21st century, you dumbasses.
yeah, yeah. Everything that they say is so modern.
Yes.
Whereas Star Trek, they like, it felt like if it felt like they try to avoid those type of things. And if they did use them, they would be like, oh, there's an old 20th century saying, and they would say it like that.
Well, when Spock said that to, when Spock said that to Kirk, there's an old Vulcan proverb: only Nixon
Mm-hmm.
could go to China. That had some reference to what he was saying. He was saying they adopted a phrase from her. Oh, by the way,
Right.
I forgot about this one.
Vulcan humor.
Yes, I forgot about this one. Orion capitalist libertarian pirates. That's kind of an oxymoron. That actually
Yeah.
made no sense. I was like, capitalist libertarian pirates. I was like, do you realize you said an ideology, a form of uh, consumerism, a species, and a form of pirating, a form of profession,
I don't
and it
think
made
Lower Decks has a science advisor.
yeah. It did. I think they need a cultural advisor because they clearly I don't know what these people in the writers' rooms are doing, but they need. Oh, I don't know. I swear to God, I want to march down to their HR department and be like, you know what? I'm gonna be that conservative triggered motherfucker you've all been scared of, and I'm going to tell you everything that triggered me about your show. And then you know what the sad part would be? I'd
But
probably win.
yeah, maybe.
It's just it's crazy. I don't understand it. I mean, I keep seeing, I know you've seen it on there. These rumors about, oh, Star Trek Discovery season 3 is over, and then some people are saying, oh, season 4 is going on. I'm like, I honestly would be like, does anybody really give a shit? I mean, who gives a fuck?
With 1.7 million viewers so far on average, they're not doing very well. Remember, this is the highest. This is one of the most expensive television shows in history.
Yeah,
Uh,
what is it? 9 million, like 8, 9
some
million an
eight
episode.
to $9 million an episode, something like that. Some people say up to 12, and
So it's
all for an
it's Game of
audience of
Thrones level money.
all for an audience of less than 2 million.
I think that's Game of Thrones level money, and I'm pretty sure Game of Thrones had a better audience.
Yes, they did, until they fucked up the ending.
Well, that's a story for another time. Oh, I knew everybody was going to be pissed about that ending. I saw the second to last episode before the last episode. Okay, so full disclosure here. Actually, we're going to talk offline, folks. We're going to talk offline. You've been great. It was wonderful having you. Tomorrow, we're going to talk 10 Forward. We're going to talk the next Marvel movie. Hey, Bones. Yo, you gonna talk, man? You looking a little stiff. Looking a little
Star Trek
pale, man.
Discovery
Get some.
sucks. So does Lower Decks and Picard.
All right, everyone, you have a good one. We are out. Peace and long life. Live long and prosper. Jack, don't eat those edibles there.